Russia's support for Hamas is part of what many see as its regional power play, and we are seeing similar Kremlin influence over the man described as Europe's last dictator, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Now, in his first public address since the forced landing of a Ryanair flight on Sunday, he claims ill wishers are attacking Belarus. Speaking to Parliament a short time ago, the president said there was a bomb threat that came from Switzerland. Switzerland denies any knowledge of that. Mr. Lukashenko says diverting the plane was legal, but there's plenty of condemnation for it coming from the US and the UK, along with the EU and the United Nations. Europe telling airlines to avoid Belarusian airspace. With CNN's Matthew Chance joining us from Moscow, Fred Pleitkin standing by for us in Berlin. Let me start with you, Fred. You listened to what Lukashenko said. What else was in that speech?
Well, it was a mix of lashing out towards the West, lashing out at the opposition in Belarus, but then also a lot of claims that, quite frankly, are unverified and unverified until right now. He obviously made that claim that that bomb threat allegedly came from Switzerland. The Swiss are saying they have absolutely no knowledge of that. He also said that apparently several airports in the region had turned down, had not allowed that plane to land there after the bomb threat came in. He specifically named Vilnius. He specifically named Poland, Warsaw as well. At least the Polish authorities have come back and said they knew nothing about a plane wanting to divert into their airspace and towards Warsaw Airport. So a lot of claims that are really impossible to verify or quite frankly, have been proven not to be true by now. Lukashenko then also did lash out at the West, claiming that the West was trying to stoke some sort of revolt in Belarus that at some point could then also affect Russia as well. I want to listen to some of what he had to say.
As we predicted, our ill-wishers, both outside and inside the country, have changed their methods of attacking the Belarusian state. They have crossed a lot of red lines and transgressed the limits of common sense and common morality.
Alexander Lukashenko there. At the same time, of course, Roman Protasevich, the journalist and critic of Alexander Lukashenko, who was taken off that plane. He remains in custody, and the international community continues its tough line on Alexander Lukashenko and his regime. The Biden administration saying that sanctions are very much in play. And what we're really seeing happen now in the skies over Europe is some of those flight bans really seeming to take hold. I'm going to take a look at one flight path of a Belavia plane that was supposed to fly from Minsk to Barcelona, but then had to hold for around 2 hours in Belarusian airspace and then return back to Minsk. There's also very few Western airlines who are still flying over Belarusian airspace. Also, the opposition leader of Belarus, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who of course is in exile, she was at the Foreign Relations Committee of the European Parliament today, and she called for even tougher action on the part of Europe against the Lukashenko government. Let's have a listen.
Let's be frank. The previous EU strategy of wait and see towards the Belarusian regime doesn't work. The EU approach of gradually elevating pressure on Lukashenko's regime hasn't managed to change its behavior and only led to a growing sense of impunity and massive repressions.
One of the things that she was also talking about is she believes that the EU should do is restrict the imports of some goods from Belarus, like, for instance, timber and oil. So as you can see, Becky, a lot going on. What we don't see so far is Alexander Lukashenko in any way, shape, or form backing down.
Yeah, fascinating. Matt, we understand that the UN Security Council meeting privately today on Belarus. US President Joe Biden, as Fred pointed out, says he's preparing sanctions. All of this ahead of what is this now confirmed Putin-Biden summit. I wonder how this issue might be addressed or might overshadow what is this bubble of US-Russia relations at present.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it's going to overshadow it, but it's likely to be on the agenda simply because it's the latest in, a long line of differences of opinion, if we can call it that, between the Russians and the Americans about a whole range of, conduct and global affairs. Look, I mean, we've talked about how the global community at large, in general, has been condemning categorically what took place in Belarus and its apparent violation of international norms by forcing that civilian airliner down, apparently with the express purpose of detaining a dissident journalist and activist on board. But the Russians aren't part of that. They've backed their neighbor and their ally to the hilt. They've said just today that they don't see any reason to doubt the version of events, and I'm paraphrasing them, to doubt the version of events that have been put out by the Russians when it comes to why they asked or demanded that plane land in Minsk. It was a security threat, of course, the Belarusians say, a bomb threat on board. The Russians say they've got no reason to doubt that. And they haven't been critical of the detention of that dissident journalist and activist who's been taken into custody. They haven't even been critical of the fact that his girlfriend, who's a Russian citizen, has also been taken into custody. She was taken off the plane as well and has been remanded for, I think, 2 months by the Belarusian authorities, having been accused of violating some unspecified crimes in the country over the past couple of years. And so, look, Fred mentioned that Alexander Lukashenko, the Belarusian president, shows no sign of backing down. And the main reason for that is because he doesn't need to. It's because he knows Moscow's got his back. Becky.
Matthew Chance is in Moscow. Thank you.